On to question 105. Mukesh purchased 10 bicycles in 2017, all at the same price. Fine. He sold 6 of these at a profit of 25% and the remaining 4 at a loss of 25%. So the CPU is the same everywhere, right? And 6 at a profit of 25%, 4 at a loss of 25%. If he made a total profit of 2000, then his purchase price of a bicycle is what? Now, if you logically understand this question, you'll realize that, there were 6 at a profit, right? You don't even need to write these down, and 4 at a loss, but each of these losses and the profits were the same, right? A plus 25%, minus 25%, like that, you can knock them off, and you'll be eventually left with 2 bicycles at a profit, right? And how much was the profit? 25%. So 2 into 25% into the cost price of a cycle, a bicycle, is going to be 2000, right? And 25% is nothing but 1 by 4, or 2 into 25% is 50%. 50% can be written as half. So CP is nothing but 2 into 2000, which is going to come to 4000, and we get the answer, right? So this over here, this ideally should be your steps, or rather, even this should not be, right? You should be just logically looking at it and understanding that 2 into 25%, 50% of a cycle, half a cycle is 2000, a cycle is going to be 4000. You can even mentally do it if you're conceptually clear, right? So that's what CAT is about. It's not about the painful long steps. They don't want to see your steps or workings. They just want the final answer, right? For some of you who are not able to get this immediately, right? So let's do it the plain old simple way, right? So let the CP of a bicycle be how much? X, right? Profit or loss, that's going to be 0.25x. 6 were at a profit of 25%, 6 into 0.25x minus, there's also a loss for 4 cycles, 4 into 0.25x, and that is coming to 2000, right? So now next step is going to be, just multiply this 1.5x, and then you have a minus x equals 2000, and this is nothing but 0.5x. 0.5x can also be written as half an x equals 2000, x equals 4000, right? We are once again going to get the same answer. On to question 106. A shopkeeper sells 2 tables, each procured at cost price P to Amal and Asim at a profit of 20% and a loss of 20% respectively. Okay, and Amal sells his table to Bimal at a profit of 30%. Amal was the one who had a profit of 20%, once again a profit of 30% after that. Asim sells to Varun at a loss of 30%, right? Asim is the one who already bought it at the shopkeeper sold it at a loss to him, and that's further going to another loss, okay? If the amounts paid by Bimal and Varun are X and Y, the final amounts paid, X and Y, then X minus Y divided by P, right? So there's no absolute value over here. We can assume a value. Let P be equal to 100, right? 100 over here. And let's track this path of plus, what is it initially? 20%. That's going to make it 120. And then you're going to have another plus 30%, right? A 30% profit over here, right? And eventually it's going to be 120 into 1.3. 120 into 1.3, which comes to 156. 12 13s are 156. If you remember the tables, that will be helpful, all right? And 156 is what over here? The amount paid by Bimal finally, right? At a profit of 30% when it's sold. Amount paid by Bimal, which is X, okay? And the other over here is going to be a minus 20%, which is going to bring it to 80. That's the easy part from 100. And then a further 30% dip. 3 8s are 24, all right? 24 you subtract and you get a 56, and that is going to be Y. X minus Y by P. 156 minus 56 divided by P of 100, right? That's nothing but 100 divided by 100, and that's 1, right? That's it. Option 4 is the answer here. So that's the thing with profit and loss questions, right? Papers, again, try to work these arithmetic questions. They might seem to be a little long, but across these papers, right? Typically you'd find them to be about 80% of these questions in arithmetic are going to be on the doable front. provided you spend some time and practice enough. On to question 107. A person spent rupees 50,000 to purchase a desktop computer and a laptop computer. That's the total amount spent. Okay. He sold the desktop at a 20% profit and the laptop at a 10% loss. Overall, he made a 2% profit. We just make it two linear equations and get done with it. Right? I need to find the purchase price of a desktop. So D plus L. I have to find D over here. Right? D equals what is the question? D plus L equals 50,000. Linear equations we can form. He sold the desktop at a 20% profit. 20% is 0.2 D. Okay. Laptop at a loss of 10%. Minus 0.1 L equals 2% profit. Overall was a 2% profit. 2% of 50,000. 2% is nothing but 1 by 50. 1 by 50 of 50,000 is nothing but 1,000. Right? 2% of the total cost price. Now that's it. We have two equations, two variables. I need to find D. I need to get rid of L. To get rid of L, I can just multiply this with 10. And what do I get? 2D minus L equals 10,000. Now this can be equation 1. This is equation 2. Right? Ignore this middle one right now. Right? Doesn't matter. Add them up. Right? Add them up. 1 plus 2. Right? Plus L and minus L are cancelled. D plus 2D is 3D equals, and you get a 60,000 over here. Right? So that means D over here is nothing but 20,000. Right? So the answer here is 20,000. On to question 108. Anil buys 12 toys and labels, each with the same selling price. Okay. He sells 8 toys initially at 20% discount on the label price. He sells the remaining 4 toys at additional. So far, there's no absolute value. Thus, he gets a total of 2112 and makes a 10% profit. With no discounts, his percentage of profit would have been what? Okay, this is a trick question. They'll be giving us a number over here, right? And just one number, one absolute value, I mean. And the whole idea is they are not asking for another absolute value. They are asking for the percentage of profit. And they're giving us quite a tough number, which simply means that we don't need to use it, right? It doesn't matter because we need to answer in relative terms, right? We can assume any value we want and start, and we'll be able to find this value. 2112, one single value has no significance in this question. Where it would have mattered, right? Where it would have mattered is when they're going to ask us, then what would have been the cost price of each label or mark price and so on and so forth. Then it would have mattered because we have to use this to find that price. When they're asking us to just find the percentage of profit, it doesn't matter. Right? So let's look at it. Now, what is the final part? What are they asking us? With no profits, this percentage of profit would have been what? Some discounts are given, right? With no discounts, then what would this have been? Now, Anil buys 12 toys and labels, each with the same selling price. What do they mean by each with the same selling price? Right? There are some labels given, okay? And those labels have a certain selling price. He's buying them and he has to sell it at those prices. He sells 8 toys initially at a 20% discount on the labeled price, right? So this label price is nothing but the mark price over here. So let mark price per toy, right? Whatever is going to be stuck on the price label, right? Let the mark price per toy be 100 or 100 rupees, right? So that's understood. He sells 8 toys initially at 20% discount. 20% discount on this is going to be 80 rupees. He's selling 8 toys at that price and gets 640. All right, so that's what he's getting by selling those 8 toys. He sells the remaining 4 toys. SP for the remaining 4, right, is going to be 4 into what? He's giving an additional 25% discount. 25% discount on 80, right? You should not be writing it separately. 25 by 100 into 80 equals 1 by 4, and then writing down 20 and then saying 80 minus 20 equals 60 and then writing 60 down, right? That's the long process. Start observing. These are friendly percentages. We've discussed in the percentages lesson. Start writing these as fractions. 25% is 1/4, right? 1/4 of this I have to reduce. Discount of 1/4 on this. 1/4 of 80 is 20. Remove 20 and you get your 60, right? 60 is your selling price for the 4 toys, right? And you don't need this. 4 into 60 over here is 240 and that comes to 880. That's your overall selling price. Now he gets a total of whatever, right? 880 in this case and makes a 10% profit. So on this, 10% profit is already made, right? So overall, SP selling price is 880, and 10% is nothing but 1/10. And what is profit over here? Percentage, that is profit by CP into 100%. So 1/10 profit, we've seen this in the earlier questions, right? Simply means for every 10 rupees of cost price, there is 1 rupee of profit, right? You can always create an index over here. For every 10 rupees of cost price, 1 rupee is the profit, right? Start looking at it in those terms. You'll be able to answer these a lot quicker. So for every 10 rupees of cost price, 1 rupee is the profit, which means 11 rupees is the selling price. 10 plus 1, 11. So if 11 is 880, then one part is going to be 880 by 11, which comes to 80, and the cost price is nothing but 800. Some of you, by just looking at 880 and given the patterns and like practice, you would realize that 10% of it approximately work with the nearest 100 multiple, 800, and you'd have observed it to be 800 as the cost price immediately, right? For those of you who couldn't, or on a different kind of question, you can just write it this way. Now with no discounts, this percentage of profit would have been what? Cost price is 800. With no discounts, what would have been the selling price, right? A special selling price, a new selling price, NSP, let's call it. That would have been 100 rupees, right? No discount, into 12 toys, 1200. So 800 and 1200 over here with no discounts. Percentage of profit is nothing but profit over here is 1200 minus the new profit percent would have been 1200 minus 800 divided by 800 into 100%, right? 1200 minus 800 is 400. We can divide, you get 1 by 2. Half into 100% is 50%. So the answer over here is option 2. On to question 109. A man buys 35 kg of sugar and sets a mark price in order to make a 20% profit. Fine. Setting a mark price. And then he sells 5 kg at this price, 15 kg at 10% discount, and all of that. No absolute value is given. P%, P we have to find. Perfect. So we can just assume a value over here, right? So he sets a mark price, right? So therefore, let the mark price be equal to 100, no, 100 per kg, right? A rupees 100 per kg. That's it. With that, we can start. In order to make a 20% profit. So therefore, let's change this a bit. Let the cost price per kg have been rupees 100 per kg, right? The mark price is set in order to make 20% profit. So 20% more than 100 is going to come to 120, right? Can always be flexible, always change this, right? Why have they given this to me, right? Somewhere I have to use this. So let the CP be 100, MP therefore becomes 120 per kg. In order to make a 20% profit, mark price has been set this way. Now he sells 5 kg at this price, which is the mark price. So selling price for 5 kg is going to be 5 into 120, which comes to 600. Great. And 15 kg at a 10% discount. And then another 15 kg over here is 15 into 10% is 12. 12 you subtract and you get 108. 15 into 108 divide by 2, multiply by 2, you get a 30 into 54. 3 into 54 over here is 162, 1620. Or you just use a calculator. Okay. Accidentally 3 kg of sugar is wasted. SP for 3 is 3 into 0. Fine. He sells the remaining sugar by raising the mark price by P%. The mark price of 120 is being increased by P%, so as to make a overall profit of 15%. Okay. SP for the remaining 20, 23 are done. Remaining is 12 kg. Has to be 12 into what price per kg? We don't know yet. This was 0. But what is going to be the overall selling price? What should I get? I should be making the cost price 35 into 100, right? That's the cost price. 35 into 100 rupees a kg. But what is the selling price going to be? 15%. Overall profit is 15%. 15% more than this. 15% more than this is into 1.15. You can use the calculator over here, or you could just do it as 35 into 115. 5 35s are 175. Then 1 for each of them, and you just add them up, and you get a 10, right? And you get a 4 over here. So 4025 is the overall selling price. 2220, right? Some of these 2220 are accounted for. The remaining is going to be 1805, right? 4025 minus 2220. 1805 is what you have to make from the last 12 kgs. So what is the price at which you have to sell it? 1805 divided by 12. 1800 by 12, right? So 12 into 15 is 180. 12 into 15 is 180. 12 into 150 is 1800. We are left with a 5 remainder. 155 by 12. That's another way to quickly find this without calculators. Or you can just simply divide 1805 by 12 and you'll get 150 point. I think in this case it's going to be 4167 and so on. Now this price of 155 by 12, right, was by raising the mark price by P%. 120 was raised by P%. That's it. What is that P equal to? 155 by 12, and also what's asked over here is nearest to. So ignore the 5 by 12. So 150 minus 120. It was raised by 30 divided by 120. Right? Mark price by what? So the mark price over here divided by 120, right, into 100%. 150 minus 120 is 30. 30 by 120 is 4, and you get a 25%. Option 1 is the answer here. Amal purchases some pens at rupees 8 each. To sell these, he hires an employee at a fixed wage. Okay, he sells 100 of these pens at rupees 12 each. Okay, and if the remaining pens are sold at rupees 11 each, then he makes a net profit of 300, while he makes a net loss of 300 if the remaining pens are sold at rupees 9 each. Okay, so what is the difference between these two? Between these two is nothing but 2 rupees a pen, right? 2 rupees a pen. Okay, let's, you've got to visualize this question, right? Some number of pens are bought, right? Purchase price rupees 8. I'm paying 8 rupees for each pen. Fine. I'm hiring an employee at a fixed wage to sell these pens. 100 of these pens are sold at rupees 12 each. 100 are sold at 12 each, and we are getting 1200 rupees. Let it be as it is. Now, the remaining pens are sold at rupees 11 each. There's a profit of 300. If the remaining are sold at 9 each, there's a loss of 300. So difference between the two scenarios in terms of money received, from profit of 300 plus 300 to minus 300 if it's becoming, that's because of a 600 rupee decline, right? 600 rupees less we have received. That is why there is a fall. So 600 rupees less when we are selling it at how much less? 2 rupees a pen less, right? 2 rupees a pen less. And how many such pens? It should have been 300 such pens. Only then 600 rupees less can it be, right? So 300 pens at 2 rupees a pen less is coming to 600. Now, what I wrote over here, if you're logically clear, you'd have quickly landed upon this, right? The difference over here, a profit to loss of 300, 600 rupees less is only because of the remaining pens being 2 rupees less. 2 rupees into 300 pens. What are these 300 pens? These are the additional pens, right? Additional pens over here, which results in this, right? So total number of pens sold are 100 plus 300, which is a total of 400 pens, right? So how do we solve this? You just take up one of these, right? So you take 300 pens. You can take the first scenario. Remaining pens are sold at 11 each. Are sold at 11. How much is realized? 3,300. The total amount over here is 4,500. 4,500 minus cost price of pen. Cost price of pen is 8 rupees a pen for a total of 400 pens, right? 400 pens minus the wage you have to pay for the employee should be equal to whatever was the profit made over here, which is 300 rupees, right? So you take the wage to the other side, you bring the 300 here, 4,500 minus 3,200, that's 1,300. 1,300 minus 300, that comes to 1,000. So 1,000 is the answer for this question. Now this difference part doesn't strike, so we can just go in for a plain old simple using a variable, right? Which one do I not know? I don't know X, the remaining pens. I don't know the wage of the employee. Let that be W. And I can form equations over here, right? So what's the cost price going to be? Cost price is nothing but 8 rupees into 8 rupees a pen into number of pens, 100 pens initially, and then x remaining pens or x additional pens. That comes to 800 plus 8x. Okay. Now what do we have? If remaining pens were sold at 11 each, right? 100 pens were sold at 12 each. So profit in scenario 1, right? Profit in scenario 1 is going to be 12 into 100. The selling price is going to be 1200, and then remaining pens were sold at 11 each plus 11x, right? 11 into x, that's the selling price, minus what's the cost price? 800 plus 8x. Okay, 800 plus 8x, and then also the wages, right, which we are paying the employee, and this is going to be equal to 300, right? 300 was the net profit. A second scenario where we had a loss, right? Loss over here, and it was 1200 for the first 100 was sold at 12, and then the rest were only 9 rupees a pen. So 9x, the cost price was just the same, right? No changes to that, and we get a minus 300, right? As it's a loss, it should be minus 300 written that way, and that's it. How do we simplify right now? Almost all of them are the same. I can get rid of the W quickly. The top minus the bottom, right? Top minus bottom cancels. 11x minus 9x is 2x. Rest are the same. Cancel, cancel, cancel. And 300 minus of minus 300, which comes to 600, right? So x is 300, which is what we had gotten directly over there. Now that you found x to be 300, substitute over here, and you get 1200 plus 3300, then minus of 800 plus 8x. 8 into 300 is 2400. 2400 plus 800 is 3200. Okay, minus w equals 300. Fine. 3300 minus 3200 is just a plus 100. So w is nothing but 1300 minus a 300 when you bring it to the side, right? So w equals 1300 minus 300, which comes to 1000, and that becomes the answer here. A person buys tea of 3 different qualities at 800, 500 and 300 per kg, and the amount bought are in the proportion 2:3:5. Fine. She mixes all the tea and sells 1/6. Okay, 1/6 of the mixture at 700 per kg. 1/6 of this total of 10 parts, I'm not able to do 1/6, right? 1/6 of 10 is not going to be an integer. So I have to rewrite this in such a way that I can get an integer. Total is 10 parts. 10 into 3 is 30. For 30, I can find 1/6, right? So this is a question where some absolute values are given, but per kg. Number of kgs, I can take whatever I want, right? Nowhere does it give me the number of kgs, just the ratio is given over here. Now I assume the number of kgs in such a way that I'm able to apply 1/6 and get an integer, right? So let's just write them as 3, label it this way, A, B and C, right? Price per kg, right? Buys. So therefore CP per kg is going to be 800, 500 and 300. The number of kgs over here, I'm going to multiply each of them with 3, right? 2 into 3 is 6, 3 into 3 is 9, 5 into 3 is 15. So the ratio is 2:3:5. It holds good. So what is the actual cost price over here? Cost price is nothing but the product of these two. 800 into 6 is 4800. 9 5s are 45. 15 3s are 45. The totals over here we can write 6 plus 9 plus 15, that's 30 kg, and the total over here 90 plus 48, which comes to 13800. Now 1/6 of this mixture is sold at rupees 700 per kg, right? Selling price for 1/6 of 30. 1/6 of 30 is 5 kg. So 5 kg is sold at 700, which comes to 3500 rupees. The price in INR per kg at which she should sell the remaining tea to make an overall profit of 50%. So the remaining is 25 kg. Total of 30, 5 is sold, 25 left. 25 should be sold at what price? in order to make an overall profit of 50%. 50% of what? 50% more than this, into 50% is 1.5 or 3 by 2, right, will give me the SP, right. So the 13,800 into 3 by 2. So final SP, overall SP is going to be 13,800 into 1.5 or 3 by 2, divided by 2 over here, you get a 6900, and 69 into 3, 73 is 210, minus 3, 20700. Subtract these two and we get a 172, right, yep, and 2 zeros, 17200 divided by 25. Now 25 can be written as, right, so if I have to simplify this, 25 can be written as 100 by 4, and I'll take it to that side, right. 17200 equals 25 into something. I'm just showing it to you. 25 can be written as 100 by 4. This is easier. The 2 zeros can be knocked off. Take 4 and multiply there. So your something equals 172 into 4. 4 17s are 68. 2 4s are 8. 688. Right? 688 becomes the answer for this question. One part of a hostel's monthly expense is fixed. Okay, there's some fixed cost. The other part is proportional to the number of its boarders. Okay, then you have a variable cost, which is to be multiplied with n, the number of boarders. The hostel collects 1,600 per month from each boarder. When the number of boarders is 50, the profit is 200 rupees per boarder. When the number of boarders is 75, the profit of the hostel is 250 rupees per boarder. When the number of boarders is 80, the total profit of the hostel in INR will be what? Okay, now this is a question, if you're clear with the concept of variable margin, which I have discussed in the profit and loss lesson, right? That's going to be easy. Now, what is this variable margin over here? The variable margin is nothing but your selling price minus variable cost, right? Per item. That's the variable margin. The variable cost is depending on the number of items sold, right? Or number of people over here, the number of boarders. Selling price of the revenue which is coming in is also per boarder, right? So therefore, your selling price or revenue per item or per boarder, you subtract from the variable cost alone, and we're going to get that. Now this variable margin is what has to cover the fixed cost, and then go on to cover the, and then go on to make a profit, right, for the company. Now in this case, let's just understand the profit, right? The profit when we are going to be having 50 boarders. Profit at the time of 50 boarders is going to be 200. Let me write that clearly, right? 200 into 50, which comes to 10,000. The profit when it's going to be 75 boarders, right? 75 boarders over here is given as 250 per boarder. 250 into 75. 25 and 25, 625, 625 into 3 is 18750, 18750. That's it. Incrementally, right, this differential amount 8750 was what? 8750 would have been uniform for the 25 extra boarders. Every extra boarder is contributing that much more to the profit because fixed cost is covered. Right, each of these extra 25. So each of these extra 25 are contributing how much to bring to 8750? 8750 divided by 25, right? 3 25s are 75, and then a 5 and a 0. So 350 rupees per boarder is the variable margin referred to the profit and loss lesson, right? On our website, mockat.com. 350 rupees over here is the variable margin, right, per boarder. 25 additional boarders brought in that much more, and therefore the profit went up from 10,000 to 18,750. Now that you have found this, all they're asking for is the total profit when we had 80 boarders, right? How much more would it have become? It would have gone up by 5 more boarders came in at 350 a boarder. That is 1750 rupees more than this. What is 18,750 plus 1,750? 18 plus 1 is 19,000, 750 is 1,500. So 20,500. 18,750 plus 1,750 is 20,500. You can also solve this question the long method, right, which is fixed cost plus 50V equals 1,600, right, 1,600 rupees into 50, right, that's the revenue minus the profit, right. Profit over here is going to be 50 into 200, and then you form one more equation for F plus 75V and all of that. That's just going to be a painful process. Conceptually understanding this will get you to answer this a lot quicker.